I'm 6 foot, so 183 centimeters.
Okay, so let's talk about an enduro bike, like the bike you'll buy if you were to ride Squamish every day, mostly pedal, do a bit of shuttling here and there. You're basically 160, 170 category, which is the most common bikes around here. So ideal geometry.
I would go for a 470 mil reach.
Okay.
About a 650 mil stack.
Okay.
I would go, basically, I want an effective top tube of around 620. So that would put me, I reckon, about a 77 degree seat tube angle. I'm not a massive, I think we went too much. I think we went too steep and it puts too much puts too much weight in your hands when you're climbing. And it gives you something so cramped because the seat tube is so steep that you end up having to go crazy in terms of reach to get comfortable.
So why do you think companies in general went steeper and steeper with the seat tube angle?
I think because I think a lot of the time, and this is someone that I also at the time didn't understand, I don't think they understood. Leo Konkanen from Pole, when asking about the steep seat tube angles, we spoke about it, and he basically strapped his forks down on his downhill bike and realized it was really, really good to have a steep seat tube angle. And I think so often we thought that we were having these, and just on the same page with the listener, when you have a really, really long reach, you can get a lot of that, you can bring the handlebars closer by obviously making the seat tube. But then we end up with a bike that could be 490 reach with an 80 degree seat tube angle. And the seat position, the distance between the contact points isn't too bad, but then it feels very big out the saddle. On the other way, you can get something which used to happen is that, bikes have a very, very slack seat tube angle and a very, very short reach. So the distance between the hand and the handlebars and the seat hasn't really changed that much. It's been, but I think what happened was we ended up, I think it was down to trying to keep that effective top tube number consistent around, say, 620 for a large. And I think that people realizing that similar, you said about skis, which is exactly, I think it's such a fair comparison, but our version of in mountain biking was having lots and big reach was almost like having huge amounts of rocker. And it made the bike a lot safer because it put more bike between you and danger. Yeah. But also it meant that if you got something that was numb and unrewarding to ride, and then they had to get that back with the seat tube.
So so I think that's obviously one of the reasons. Another reason that I think is enduro bikes got more and more travels. Mm-hmm. So that means the distance between your rear axle going up increased. So the travel on the rear wheel obviously increased. Wheels got bigger, 26.
Yes, right, yeah.
Then 29, but 29 at the time were not for big enduro bikes, they were just for lighter trail bike, cross-country bikes, and 27.5. And I think what's happened is that suddenly the tires too close to the seat. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, every seat post manufacturer was 100 millimeter is cool, 125 is better, 150 is better, 175, 200. Yeah. So then, and I feel like I know that well because I'm small. Mm-hmm. So I've always had the challenge of how low can I put my seat without having the rear wheel smashing onto the seat when I'm close to bottoming out. And I think what happened is that also chain stays got longer as well. As the reach got longer, chain stays also got longer. But in order to avoid that the tire will touch the seat, manufacturer had to make the seat, the seat tube essentially a bit straighter. Seat manufacturer understood that and made the rear of the seat a bit shorter. And I think now it's all sorted out. They understood the formula where you can have the bike bottom out with the seat really low without any issue. But I feel like you still hear, especially on World Cup racing, because the bikes have more travel, rider run their seat low, you still hear the seat buzzing. So I think that's one of the big reasons why the seat tube went a bit.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, yeah.
Straighter. Because when you actually ride the bike downhill, if your seat tube is too steep, then the seat is not essentially where it should be.
Yeah, totally.
And when you actually ride the bike, the seat is nice when you pedal uphill. But me, I focus really on the downhill performance, the position of the seat is incredibly important to maneuver the bike and to control it. When you come into a corner, an off camber, I mean, even in the air, you use your seats actually much more than what people think.
So if I was riding, I had to collect something from Pemberton. This was like 6 weeks ago. My friend had never ridden there. So I said, hey, dude, let's go ride Pemberton. And we rode to the top on the first run, and we wanted to ride like some proper like meat grinder and stuff. Don't even ridden that, but like quite decky trails. And I didn't charge my seat post. So then I took the whole seat post and it was stuck up. So then I put it down my leg, and it was like, so the saddle was here, and we're riding, and I couldn't believe how much, not having a saddle at all, how much I used it to gauge where the bike was.
Yeah, of course.
But anyway, so then I felt really bad because I've ruined his day. So I took him to shuttle some laps, and then immediately went home, and I forgot to collect the thing I went to fucking Pemberton for.
Is this
so
like
to go back.
A Fox or a Reverb?
Fox.
It happened to one of my friends, but he was looking on ChatGPT. But the problem was somewhere was not enough cell reception to actually get internet. He was like, oh, I know there is a way to like get it back down. And in the end, it was just like a misconnection with the battery because everything was working, but just, so he took the battery out, plug it back, and ended up working. But yeah, if we jump back to geometry, so we talk about the reach 470 for a size large at tube angle.
I think 64 for an enduro bike.
Okay.
I think if I had 64 for most bikes, I don't know. I think that for me, maybe it's what I ride and whatever, but I'd rather have something a bit higher and steeper than have something that, I know, I just think that they cover off a better window in terms of a wider variation of speed. I think the slack stuff works really well when you're plumbing, but when you kind of just want that, like, to not feel like your bike's falling to side to side on short turns, short radius turns, I think that I'd rather go something a bit steeper and then get some of that stability back from higher front, which is why I'd also want a longer rear end to keep that high front calm.
So what rear ends?
I think for a 470 reach, I think 450.
450, okay.
Yeah. I think, I don't know. Like on a downhill bike, I might go slightly more, maybe 460.
I've never tried actually 460 on a downhill bike because my downhill bike, my rage goes 445 or 460. And I was always, like for the type of riding I do, I was really happy with 445, and also it's consistent with all my other bikes. So, well, except the e-bikes. So that way, on any bike, when I move the rear wheel, which I do a lot, it always feels the same, regardless of the bike.
But do you think, I think it tends to be, I mean, some races go for longer offsets than I would typically have, you know, like I can't remember, I think it's, Finn is running like a 55mm offset on a fork, which is, I would say is too long. But then I just think, also says that I think by having a long rear end, you can get something that, and I just think like the radius and the turns we ride on downhill bikes is that bit wider. So often I find like a 50mm stem is actually really nice on a downhill bike, and longer offs, not as long as maybe that, but like a 48 offset is actually pretty nice because it just doesn't feel like we want to, like, obviously, you know, you do go through turns and stuff, but we're not trying to do really short radius turns in the same way. Yeah. It's
basically, I mean, the bikes are like, if you take an enduro bike, downhill bike, obviously they're very different, but the type of terrain you ride, the bikes on, are extremely different. Just the speed and the type of corners and how steep it is, the impact, everything is completely different. So of course that makes it tough to compare, but that makes me think of something. So for your dream enduro bike, well, first of all, the wheels. Like I felt like that's something we should have talked about. Front wheel, rear wheel, Boss 29.
It's funny, me and Remy, my Remy at Quarter HP, we're talking about it the day, and when I ordered, and they put the initial order in for wheels, I only ordered like one 27.5 enduro rear, because I was like, a 29 rear, because I was like, everything's mixed wheeled now.
Yeah.
But I've kind of come back to the 29. The full 29, I'm kind of like,
I think you turn enough.
Yeah. I can get away with it.
Is that you can get away with it on all situations?
Because the stacks have got higher. When the stack's lower, I hit my ass more, like on the tire, and so now I feel like I've just got more room. But I'd probably go full 29. I think a big thing for me would be, and you know, there are different companies that make it, whether it's E13, you know, O-Chain. it is absolutely 100% got to have some sort of chain management device, because I think it frees up what you have to do with the suspension so much.
Yeah.
And you get something that's simpler, where the leverage ratio and the axle path are designed with riding in mind, not having to do the job of also managing the feet.
Yeah.
So that would be huge for me.
Like, I mean, I've tried the E13 hub. I've tried the chain, the impact, and same, since I've tried that, I don't want to ride a bike.
No, it's
unless it was a high pivot. But the last time I rode a high pivot was 5 years ago, so I would have to but I want one of those devices at all time on my bike.
Totally.
People think it's expensive, and what can it do? I'm like, once you try it, you don't want to take it out.
The braking is so different for me. Like, I think sometimes, depending on, some 4-bars are worse for it than others, but like, you once you go to these devices, then you come back and you do back-to-back testing, you realize that when you touch your rear brake, your head tube height drops a bit. And that is a horrible feeling when things are getting rough and weird.
It's more consistent.
Yeah, it's so much better.
And I read the comment, I did a video about it, and someone said, "Oh, you say you see better, it's bullshit." Because it removes some of the vibration, your rear wheel you don't have the feeling that you get hung up on stuff as much, because suspension can be more active, there's less chain slap. I feel like I see better. I feel like I'm more calm on the bike.
I recognize that, actually. Yeah,
and to me, that was one of the biggest benefits. Yeah. Obviously, less noise, more comfortable on the feet. Yeah. When you do long laps, like super long laps, and it's like those small impacts, I find it way more comfortable on the feet, without even talking about how the bike rides, just the actual comfort.
But imagine riding, I think, for flat pedal riders.
Yes.
I mean, I ride clips, but it must be fucking game changer. Yeah.
Actually, it's fair. I pretty much never ride flat pedals, but I'd be curious to ride. I think it's even more noticeable for flat pedal riders, just because of the benefit of it.
Yeah, totally.
So 29 with a device such as a Impact or you're setting up. We talked about the geometry. What travel?
I would go 170, 170. I might even give away a bit of stack height for if you just got loads of head tube to play with.
Yeah.
For me, once you've gone on a 38mm chassis fork, travel doesn't weigh anything. If I was making a big burly bike, I might even go 180mm fork, and
that's true.
It's like you're in for a penny, in for a pound. I think something I really, really like, and one of the reasons, a theme that I've noticed in the bikes that go from being, oh, that's a really good bike, to a bike that I feel I really love, is having something that really is happy to go into its stroke when you hit the rear brake. I just feel there's something about that consistency, and it comes back to just to the head tube and where my hands are sitting, and how, whether it pulls or not, my upper body. And I don't know. I think there's something about the feeling like the bottom bracket is dropping behind the front axle under braking, that for the confidence I'm seeking is really, really important.
Well, no, I feel the same, because you usually brake when you go downhill. So if it's the case and your bottom bracket drops, normally, especially if you're a heavy front brake user like I am, if you press on your front brake, what happens? Your fork dives, right? But if your bike can sag, and your bottom bracket drops as much as your hands, that's gonna give, at least for me, a lot of confidence. I don't feel like my weight goes forward, which is a bigger thing when you're trying to slow down and it's steep. So yeah, I do experience the same. One thing I was gonna ask you, so we talked about the travel. Actually, sorry, one thing that you mentioned, actually I never thought about it this way, but you say travel doesn't weigh anything. It's actually, especially with an air fork, it's basically it's
the fucking same. Yeah,
it's exactly the same. Often people ask me if I prefer the prop and tie or the spin drift. I do feel like I prefer. I ride the spin drift more, mostly because of the trails here, because they are, they're fast and demanding. Sorry, not fast, they're rough. The amount of compression we get. I listened actually to another podcast, and the rider mentioned that. Actually, I think that was your podcast with Elliot. That he's talking about the compression. I hadn't really thought about it, but the amount of compression we get here is like nothing else in the world, because you need the grip, you need the change of slope. You know, you need to go from like really steep to like flat and steep again. Where I grew up in France, we didn't really have that. So like some of the G-forces and some of the compression that we get without even taking off, without even having the wheels go off the ground.
Just ride the source at the moment. So like there's rutted turns when the bike catches and wants to stand up.
You can go super deep in the travel without even taking off, without, so, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, just to your choice between the two bikes, this is going to be the most ivory tower bullshit thing, bike media person, that could ever be said. So if you're listening at home, I know that it sounds ridiculous, but I think when riding this time of year, it's a bit slower. There's a bit, the ground's not so firm. A 150mm bike feels really nice.
Yeah.
But when, even in 3-4 months time, when things get drier and harder and holes develop and you go faster, you want extra travel.
Totally.
And like right now, there's actually it's a really lovely thing to go around at 150mm travel.
Yeah.
And you try and be precise. And I'm on a stump jump at the moment, which I'm reviewing, which I'm really enjoying. But in the height of summer, I want that bike? No, I want an enduro bike.
Yeah, no, totally. That's actually, I'm doing a video tomorrow talking about settings. And like the settings that I found that work for me right now are based on the conditions. Because, I'm setting up the bike, but right now the speed I can go on the sauce versus when it's perfect, my speed is way slower today or tomorrow than it will be in, 2 months when it's perfect. And so that's always something to take in consideration. But between the tire and the spin wheel, for example, I'm like, both bike pedal really well. Hey.
Amount of Toby, my dog, has ruined so many podcasts. She's pretty good.
She's really comfortable because she's never sat. And she's always been there, but she usually stays down.
Toby goes inside my car, inside my garage.
Everywhere.
It's like this like padded cell.
Yeah.
And then we go into a different room. Hey.
But yeah, between the tire and the spin drift, because they both pedal really well, you just have one that feels stronger because it's been developed to, take more essentially and go on bike path. And it's got extra travel. You just feel like you can just go faster.
Yes.
Essentially pedals super well, but can take more.
Yes.
And the weight difference is peanuts.
Yes.
It's not much.
It's not, and I just think that I've died on this hill many times, but I think the industry, so the consumer who fund the industry, I think sometimes we have this thing where like, I don't know, it's like, it's not the mountain bikers out there spending their hard-earned cash that are funding the industry, when of course it absolutely is. And I think that they have been so wholly underserved by bikes that have just been too light. Like, it doesn't fucking matter. And this idea that like, obviously, if I had a 120mm travel trail bike, would I want it to weigh 2 pounds less if I could? Yeah. But when you're going in all this, and you need downhill tires because you're going to puncture immediately if you don't, and you this, that, the other, and you're braking wheels and you're pushing hard. Like the idea that, for instance, like brake rotors took like 10 years just to get thicker. And we're doing all this like ice technology and stuff. And it's like, just turns out making them thicker, did it?